So hi everyone, my name is Kathy Markov and I'm so happy to be a faculty member in the series of workshops that are actually created by the Workforce Development Board of Santa Barbara in partnership with America's Job Center. So it's really my pleasure to be here with you today. My name is Kathy Markov. I'm your instructor, but I kind of feel like I'm your guide because this is, and should be, really important information to each and every one of you. We have a few participants live, but this is being recorded and it will be posted on the Workforce Development Board and America's Job Center site for the County of Santa Barbara. And so I will be talking in a way that this could be what we call evergreen and used at different times. So I have been a trainer and a college instructor really my entire career, and I find myself talking about goal setting over the years. We're going to learn some really important things. And just so you know, I ran America's Job Centers of California for San Luis Obispo County during the 2009 recession. And so I hope to take this information that can be generalized in the workplace, in your personal life, but really apply it to those of you that are looking for work at this time, or really at any time. So, goal setting is really vital in life and in your career. It is a skill that you can learn. And my 25-year career, I've had the privilege of working with literally thousands and thousands of people in hundreds and hundreds of organizations. And what I'm going to teach you, at first, when I first started 25 years ago, I thought, oh, that's old-fashioned. But to be honest, what we're going to learn today is tried and true goal setting methodology. I hope it's not completely unfamiliar to you, but if you can learn this and set goals for yourself during this time and in the future, you can take this methodology to your next employer and really impress them with your ability to help the organization get focused. So, what are we doing here? By the end of this session, I want you to discover what your personal values and how to find purpose to enact them. So we all have values. How do we make sure every day we're living our values? We have a goal. We're headed towards that goal. And this is what we're going to do today. You start with your values. I want you to be able to develop what I call smarter goals. So you may have heard of SMART goals, but we're going to add an ER to the end, and I'll tell you what that means. And that is the key to achieving your goals. I want you to learn how to use your time to focus on the most important goals, right? There's 50 million things that we can do, but what is really important is that we're able to focus in on our goals. So here we are in Zoom. Let's talk a little bit about Zoom, some housekeeping rules. I want you to turn your video off, and I see that you have, and you can put your mute on. I am happy to take questions at the end, and I also want you to open up your chat. So there's a little box on the ribbon underneath your Zoom, and it says chat. So open up your chat, and I'm going to type in here, welcome everyone. So this is an important way for us to communicate with one another. And in there, if you have questions as I'm talking, I have my chat up. I'll see that question. And my goal is to be able to teach you, but also keep track of the questions. So if you have any kind of questions, please put that into the chat. Let's really look at this topic here. We're also going to do something else with the chat. So, this quote, I think this is important. If you aim at nothing, you'll hit it every time, right? So I don't know who said this, but I like that. I think it's right, right? Sometimes we have nothing to do, and that's great. We'll talk about that too. But truly, as you look for work, as you engage with your employer, as you live your life, it's important to have a goal to aim for. And this way you can be focused in terms of deciding how you're going to use your time to reach it. So this is what I want to do. I know we only have a few people on the line, but I still want to do this. Again, in your chat, I want you to, don't do this right away. I want you to do something that's called a chat storm. This is a good thing for you to learn for your employer. A chat storm is where I'm going to ask you these two questions. In the chat, I want you to list a goal that you reached. Just make it, pretty straightforward. We don't need the long story, but what was the goal that you ran a marathon, you completed a certification class, you lost 25 pounds, whatever it was. Put that in the chat, and then at least one factor that helped you reach it. What helped you to reach that goal? At least one. You could put more, but just one. So I'm going to put into the chat what I'm asking you, but don't press enter until I tell you, okay? So I'll give you about 2 minutes to do this. So I'll let you do it. Okay, so maybe another minute more. Okay, get ready, hit enter. We have Takako has joined us, welcome. So Martin, you're the only one that responded. You got back to school. Hey, congratulations, very good. I'm gonna talk about that, that's very important. And you got motivation from your family and friends. This is so perfect to what we're going to talk about, Martin. Thank you so much for adding that into the chat. This is exactly what I was looking for. This is really important. Each and every one of you have achieved goals. You've set goals and you've reached them in your life. I know you have, from big things to small things. And sometimes life gets in the way, like a pandemic that changes what we need to do in order to reach our goal. And there are many paths to reaching one goal. Sometimes we can get there very quickly. Sometimes it takes patience and time. And so whatever your goal is, getting back to school, that's fantastic, Martin. Now let's see you in there and get your certification or degree, complete the course. And factors, this is really important. What is it that helps keep you motivated? What are the factors that help you achieve your goals? Know yourself well enough that you can employ those things. For example, some people say, put little signs around your house reminding you of your goal. That works for me. Or pictures of what you're trying to achieve, like a vision board. Or maybe you want to journal your way. I'm not a journaler. It doesn't work for me, but it works for a lot of people. Soliciting help from family and friends, right? For me, putting it in my calendar book, like all the little steps I need to break things down. This is important that you know the things that help you to succeed and to employ them when you're setting a goal. So let's talk about this. This is the picture in the advertisement or the flyer for this particular workshop. And I thought it was interesting. I didn't pick it, but it was perfect. It was the perfect picture because you see what these people are doing? Although they do have their computer there, they're writing things down. And this is really important. Now, I will say that for me, actually pen to paper, I'm doing it less and less. I am really making a concerted effort to make everything I do digital and virtual. But I will say there's a different kind of an impact on who I am. It makes it more real to me when I actually get out a piece of paper and a pen and I write it down. So I write my goals, I write my tasks down on pieces of paper. It helps me. And I want to tell you a little story about this, because this is actually a tried and true technique, time management technique to stay focused, is to have to-do lists and to write things down. So many, many years ago, I don't know, I think I was still in college. I had heard of that concept of a bucket list. And I wrote a list of 20 things that I wanted to do. I mean, I was in my 20s. I don't think I said before I die, but I wrote down 20 things that I wanted to do in my life. And it was a list of lots of things, you know, having kids, getting married, having a great job, doing the Peace Corps. I was a Peace Corps volunteer. That was one of the things that was important to me. And I had a lot of travel things. So one of the things I wrote down is that I wanted to go here. Does anybody know where this is? This is Rio de Janeiro. And so I had put that list away. Well, by the way, there was something else on the list that I should share with you. And that was, I wanted to, where is it? Okay, there. I wanted to go to Rio de Janeiro, and I wanted a hang glide. Didn't have to be together. I didn't even think you could do it together, but I wanted to go to Rio and I wanted to do hang gliding. And it was on my little handwritten list. I put that list inside a travel diary and I put it in a box when I got married. And then my husband and I, we had the privilege of living in Europe on 2 different occasions by traveling extensively in Europe and the South Pacific. We lived on the East Coast, and it was probably about 10 years ago. We were moving homes, and I found that box of old travel diaries, and I opened it up, and out of it fell that little slip of paper. It was really interesting because I looked at that list, and I had done everything but 2 things. I hadn't been to Rio, and I hadn't hang glided. But you know what? I had in my purse a ticket to Rio de Janeiro to go to do some volunteer work in the next month. So I looked at the list, oh my gosh, I've done everything and I'm going to Rio. The only thing then on my list is hang gliding. So I had a day before the work that I was going to do started, and I had a friend who lived in Rio, and his name was Paul. He was an American who was living there. And I called him, he said, oh, I'm leaving Rio. And I said, when are you leaving, Paul? And he told me the date, and it was the day after I arrived. I arrived the day before he left. And he said, well, if you don't mind, there's some things I've been wanting to do in Rio. You can just come and do them with me if you're adventurous. And I said, well, I'm going on a trip. I want to be adventurous. So I arrive in Rio de Janeiro at like, I don't know, 6 or 7 in the morning. We go out to breakfast, have some coffee. And he looks at me kind of shyly and he said, you know, I told you that I wanted to do some adventurous things. What about extremely adventurous things? And I said, well, I don't know. It depends. He says, I have reservations for us to go hang gliding. I didn't want to tell you because the weather had to cooperate. And today's a perfect day to go hang gliding over Rio. I couldn't believe it, right? There, my bucket list is complete. So yes, I went hang gliding in Rio and it was amazing. But my point is that when we write things down, even though those weren't really well articulated goals, there's something that happens when we get that clarity of focus and we are able to achieve them. Now, I'm going to talk to you not just making lists of things, but a methodology to really develop goals and plans in order to get where you want to. And this, you know, I was talking about fun things to do, but when we're talking about our career and our professional life, we need to be very strategic to get there. So I'm going to tell you, again, some methodologies to do it. So luck is a matter of preparation, meeting opportunity. This is what Oprah Winfrey says, right? So what does that mean? Luck doesn't just happen. We need to be prepared for it. We need to be ready for it. We need to be in the right environment for this to happen. And it's like what Stephen Covey says. He says, begin with the end in mind. And he says, to begin with the end in mind means to start with a clear understanding of your destination. It means to know where you're going so that you better understand where you are now, and so that the steps you take are always in the right direction. So how does a heat-seeking missile find its target? You know, it isn't actually seeking the heat necessarily. It knows when it's not in the heat. So a heat-seeking missile is not going in a straight trajectory. It's actually going all over the place, but it knows when it's not in the right place. And this is really important because as we move through life, even a slight deviation could mean we end up somewhere else, somewhere we didn't really want to go. So it's very important that we're clear and we keep those things in mind and we adjust as we go in order to meet our goal. Here's the steps to prepare for an opportunity. You want to understand what you want based on your values. This is how you develop a strategy, right? Everybody has all kinds of goals, and you might look at someone and say, oh, I wish I was there. Well, really? Is that really suited to who you are and what you want to be? You want to set what I call SMART-er goals, and I'll be very specific. That's an acronym, and we'll talk about that. You want to break down your goals into actionable steps. These are what we call your tactical plans, but you also want to have some contingency plans, which are actually built into the goal itself. And you want to be persistent. No one ever reached anything without being persistent. So values are kind of funny things. If we make a list of all the values, there'd be hundreds of values, and we would all agree that, yeah, they're good, but it's the priority of values that ends up being important. This determines your behavior. So you may think that, for example, honesty is important, but to be truly honest with someone, it may not be respectful. So which is more important, being respectful or being honest, right? To be committed or to be flexible, right? To be committed to what? Are you committed to the organization? Are you committed to the rules? Are you committed to people? So what does all that mean? And what is more important? What's the priority of values? What is most important to you at any given time in any given situation? So we want to think about that. You want to base your strategy on your priority of values. Now, again, I said there's tons and tons of values and lots of ways to look at this. But because we're doing this work for the America's Job Center, I want to put this in the perspective of a job seeker. So a couple of things. Accompanying this class is a handout, and the handout will be available to you if you can write me, and I'll give you my contact information, but also you can reach out to where you registered for this class and get the handout. It will also be, I think, available on America's Job Center website. But on there is an exercise to help you prioritize your values. Now, the exercise can be used with any list of values, but for our purposes today, I did some research and I found an article that talked about the top values that employers are looking for in job seekers. So here it is. The first one is adaptability. Your ability to adapt to the changing environment, to new situations. I can't tell you how many people I do some coaching who get into trouble with their employer because something's changed. They have to do something a little bit different and they don't want to. That's not what I was hired to do. You know, you are committed to the employer, and business rules, business goals change. You've got to adapt to the changing environment. Commitment, being committed to the organization and its goals. Dependability. These are in alphabetical order, but this might be the most important one. Being punctual. People lose their job for not being on time. Being reliable, right? Can people count on you being there? This is really, really important. Flexibility. This is a little bit different than adaptability. Flexibility means that maybe things aren't changing so much in terms of the work that you're doing, but you're flexible on where you do your work, how you do your work, when you do your work, particularly as it relates to schedule. You don't just get stuck. Well, I only work from 9 to 5. Yeah, sometimes they need you from noon to 8. So this is the kind of thing I'm talking about, flexibility. Honesty, being honest, even when you're wrong. That gets to another one, which we'll talk about in a minute, but industriousness. This is commitment to being a hard worker and results driven, making sure your actions align to the results that are required for the organization. Integrity, right? Doing what you say, saying what you're going to do, being responsible for your actions. Organization, so being organized. Having a positive attitude. This is really key. I teach a whole class on attitude, an 8-hour class on attitude, right? This is one of the most important employability skills that you can have, is remaining positive in the face of change, frustration, things not going quite right, and respect. With the groups that I work with, I survey employees and organizations to find out what is their most important goal when we're developing mission, vision, and values. Respect is always at the top of the list. People, I think, are okay not being right or even accepting mistakes from themselves or others, but they want to be respected through the process. I know it speaks to me. I've been miserable in jobs where even if I'm doing a good job, if people don't respect it and appreciate that and respect me for what I'm doing, then that is kind of a deal breaker. So this is really important. So in your handouts, there's an exercise for you to prioritize these values and for you to come up with the top 3 values that are most important to you. Now, I know you're going to look at this list and say, oh, I know it's respect because she said it's super important, and integrity and commitment. Those are my 3 values. But you might be surprised. I've done this exercise with hundreds of people in numerous organizations to determine the priority of values for the individuals, but for the organization. And repeatedly, people are shocked that the ones they initially thought were their top, maybe they aren't. Maybe when you put respect up against industriousness, you pick industriousness over that. You'd rather be somebody who's known to work hard and then respect. So it is important to do that exercise as it's written, because you need that in order to really clarify what kind of organization, what kind of a place do you want to work for? Does this place align with my values? And then being clear on your priority values so that when you are out there looking for work, you can articulate how you've done that before, why those kinds of things are important. Then, after you do that, you want to do a SWOT analysis. Now, SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Now, some of the things I'm teaching you today are really old school, it seems. These are still the industry standard. I do strategic planning for organizations. I work with their executives and their boards of directors. And this is what I use. I mean, I go back to the classic organizational development concepts like a SWOT analysis and SMART goals. You know why? Because they work. So you can do a SWOT organization on a project. You can do it on an organization. You can do it on yourself. And this is what I'm suggesting to you, to do a SWOT analysis. And in the handouts, it has the exercise. So you want to look at what are your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and to list them, but base them on your values. And then not to stop there. That's the mistake that most people and organizations make, but to use them to develop strategy. So after you can complete your SWOT analysis, ask yourself the following questions. How can my strengths be used to realize the opportunities? How can my strengths be used to overcome the threats? How can the opportunities be leveraged to weaken my weaknesses? And what can be done to avoid the worst case scenario demonstrated by comparing my weaknesses with my threats? Now, in a job search, you do want to do this. If you've been impacted by the pandemic, losing your job, you know, we need to be able to have a growth mindset and not get stuck. I got to get the same job. No, that job did not survive well during this pandemic. It's time for you to look at your transferable skills and to be very clear about this kind of thing. What's your strategy? You like people, you maybe were a waiter or worked in hospitality. These industries have been really impacted by COVID, and it may not be the right strategy. Maybe you want to get yourself into a customer service position in a medical equipment company. That's a much stronger industry, less likely to be impacted by downturns in the economy. So this is what I'm talking about. It's opening yourself up to think creatively, and the SWOT analysis, using it and asking these questions is a way to do that, so you open up the opportunities for you. So let's start talking about goals. So this exercise is developed to help you get a strategic perspective so that you can develop solid, actionable, and smarter goals. So let's talk about them. You're never too old to set another goal or a dream, a new dream. You know, I told you I was a college instructor, and when I was teaching more full-time, I loved going to the graduation. And I was always impressed. There was a woman at Columbia College, this is in San Luis Obispo, who was graduating. And she was the only member of the graduating class of 2008 with a full-time job in her field upon graduation. Well, how'd she do it? She set a clear goal when she started school. She completed her degree in only 3 years, and this woman was 83 years old. This is a true story. It is never too late to set a goal. So the ultimate reason for setting goals is to entice you to become the person it takes to achieve them. You want to set a goal so big that you can't achieve it until you grow into the person who can. So these two quotes are kind of related to another story. Again, it was 2009, and I was running the workforce system in San Luis Obispo County, and there was actually a woman I knew, and she had been a homemaker for the past 15 years and had a very nasty divorce, and came into America's Job Center and worked with one of my career counselors. And she was really devastated because she needed to make an income. She had 2 small children, and basically her husband had just abandoned her. It was a very sad story. And she had not completed college because she had chosen to raise a family, which is wonderful. But in that kind of an economy, when the economy was down and we had unemployment at 12%, you know, people weren't going to hire her. There were just too many people with a lot of work experience and education and certifications, except in a few fields. And we asked her, what would be your dream? What would you want to do? She said, I always want to be a nurse. Well, nursing, it can take years and years and years, and we didn't have years and years and years. So we encouraged her to apply for a training stipend to become a phlebotomist. Well, we awarded her that stipend. We paid for her to go to Cuesta College. And in less than 6 months, she was certified and licensed as a phlebotomist. And within 6 months, she was working in a lab. Now, she wasn't making a ton of money, but she could keep her family afloat. And we set her on a path to become a nurse. So it took a long time. She had to complete her all the prerequisites and undergraduate degree or AA, whatever she needed to do, and get into the school. There was a long waiting list, and then complete it. Well, you know, not long ago, I mean, really, a few months ago, I ran into her like in the grocery store, and she has become a registered nurse, and she's on the front lines of the COVID crisis right now. So yes, it's been what, 10, 11 years, but this was a woman who had a need and a want. She fulfilled her need in the short term, and then she worked diligently by having clearly outlined goals in order to achieve her dream. And she is so happy. You can do this too. You need that strategy. What's your overall strategy based on your priority of values and what you want to do in life, and setting smarter goals? So let's really dig in on the goals here. A goal is a dream with a deadline. Well, sort of. I mean, Napoleon Hill had a lot to say, but there's more to it. So a few years ago, I read this book that really changed the way I talk about goal setting, and it was called Rethinking Positive Thinking. I talk a lot about it because there's a lot in this book. But basically, this woman, Gabrielle, was the researcher. Her entire career was based on determining how is it that people actually not only set but achieve goals. So she found some very interesting things. She found that just setting even a SMART goal, which we'll talk about in a minute, that's a goal with a deadline, that was good. Probably 65, 70% of people achieve their goal when they're SMART. But what takes it to the next level? And so what she did is she studied very measurable things like losing weight or passing the bar, you know, like a test that you have to take, or becoming a doctor, passing the medical exam, something like you did it or you didn't. There's no wiggle room here. You either passed or you didn't. You either lost weight or you didn't. And she found something very interesting in her research. She found that people who just set the SMART goal, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, 65, 70% of the time they reached it. But people who did one more thing, and that one more thing was to think about the what ifs, the contingencies. So I want to lose 20 pounds in 6 months. Okay, that's a pretty SMART goal. But if there's a party, if you thought about that beforehand, if there's a party, what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to eat before I go, and I'm only going to eat the vegetables. I'm going to not even have one potato chip because I can't stop. I'll have one glass of white wine, and that will be my way of dealing with the party. I want to lose 20 pounds in 6 months, and I'm going to exercise 5 days a week. And if I don't get 5 days in a week, then I'm going to take a 2-hour hike on the weekend. See, thinking about contingency plans, because life happens. When we set the best goals, and life happens. You got to think about that beforehand. What could get in your way of achieving your goal? And think about even simple, straightforward ways to overcome it. That made the difference. So the people who just set the regular goal with a deadline, they got it 65, 70% of the time. But those that thought of the contingencies, that if this happens, then I'm going to do that, 95 to 98% of the time they hit their goal. So this was, to me, very, very important. I want you to think of someone you admire, someone that achieves something that you would like to achieve. You know, they had the exact same number of hours a day that you have. The difference is that they set a plan in motion based on their goals and their overall strategy, and they didn't give up. When they ran to an obstacle, they figured out, now I'm going to do that. So this relates to you in your job search, your career, your life. There's a tried and true goal setting technique that if you learn it will not only help you to achieve your goals, but also impress your employer. The state of the art goal setting concept. Now in your handouts, I give you a link and refer to a website called Whoop My Life, W-O-O-P My Life. This is from this book, Rethinking Positive Thinking, and it has some tools to help you learn this even more. But let's look at this goal setting technique that I've referred to, smarter goals. So here we go. Here's the basic concept, SMART goals. Now, some of you already know the first kind of acronym. So there are different ways to define this, but pretty much everybody agrees on these. The S stands for specific. The M stands for measurable. The R stands for realistic, excuse me. It could be reasonable, but realistic. And the R stands for time bound. So let's leave the A for a minute. Let's go back to the weight loss goal. So I want to lose 20 pounds in 3 weeks because I'm going to a party. Now, is that a SMART goal? It's specific, it's measurable, it's time bound, but is it realistic? I mean, I guess you could throw up, starve yourself, sit in a steam hot sauna, whatever it is, but really it's not realistic to lose 20 pounds in 3 weeks, right? So I want to lose 20 pounds in 6 months. Okay, that's specific. That's measurable. That's pretty realistic. 2 pounds a week max, even 1 pound a week. I could probably do that. And it's time bound. We have a goal of 6 months. But here's the thing. Now, the A part of this, sometimes people say achievable. What's the difference between achievable and realistic or even reasonable? I don't know. My mind can't figure out the difference. So this is what I think. I think the A stands for agreed upon. So I want to lose 20 pounds in 6 months, but then I have to agree that I'm going to stop eating chocolate chip cookies. I'm not going to have a glass of wine every night. I'm not going to indulge when my son wants to take me to In-N-Out and get French fries and a milkshake, right? I have to agree. Now, this works individually. It also works in a group. I teach this to managers, and I say, you want to get a team of people doing something? Get them involved in developing the goals, right? You can direct it, but get them involved in it, because if they don't agree to do it, it ain't going to happen. So this is what's really important to think about. Your goals need to be specific, measurable, realistic, time-bound, and I think most importantly, agreed upon. And you know what? You think about that person that you admire so much, maybe you don't agree to do what they did. Maybe you admire somebody who got their PhD. I do, but guess what? I don't agree to spend the next 3 to 7 years of my life poring over the books. I decided to do different things with my life. Now I could change that. Maybe I'll be 83 and go get my PhD. But you've got to agree to it. And so it takes some reflection. And when you're looking for work, this is a great time to reflect and to figure out what you're going to do. So SMART goals, but there's that ER part, right? Let's look at that. The ER stands for empowerment rules. If this happens, then I'm going to do that, right? Empowerment rules are really contingency plans. What if something doesn't go right? Then what are you going to do? You get distracted or the world doesn't cooperate with your plans. What are you going to do? I'll give you an example from my life. I have a business where what I do is training. And my expertise is what they call experiential learning. It's live training in front of live audiences, custom designed. Well, the world had a different plan for me this year, right? COVID-19 hit, and it is not cooperating with my business plan. So what do? Roll over and say, well, forget it, I'm out of business. Well, I'm not in a position to do that. So I can't deliver live trainings. Now I'm delivering them virtually. And since the pandemic hit, I've become a moderator for Zoom and Adobe Connect platforms, not only for my business, but for other organizations. And I've become certified as a distance education instructor for the California Community College System. That's what I've done in the last 6 months to update my skills. And to be honest with you, those things that I've done just landed me a nice contract working for USAID, the State Department. So this is what I'm saying. You need to be a lifelong learner. You need to maintain an open mindset because you need to have these if-then rules. If I can't do live training, then I'm going to take everything virtual. And if that's a contingency plan, then maybe I need to start thinking about how do I prepare myself and educate myself for that contingency, right? You're growing into the person that you could be. But it does take this idea of a growth mindset. Now, this is the work of Carol Dweck. I talk a lot about it, but it's very important, particularly for us that are living nowadays. They say that people living now, regardless of the generation you're in, have and will experience more change impacting us than any other generation before. And that's remarkable to me. My grandmother came across the plains from New Mexico to Colorado on a covered wagon, and she saw men landing on the moon, and she's passed, but she had a cell phone, right? So you think about that, from a covered wagon to a cell phone, she experienced a lot of change. But what they're saying now is that the change isn't big things like people on the moon and cars and televisions. It's really impacting the way in which we interact with each other in the world. Just think about the last 6 months, right? I have not physically seen many of my family or friends, but I still feel connected to them through this technology. It may not be as satisfying as it was before, but it's still possible. And I had to learn and change and grow, develop and unfold. And when you do that, what kind of opportunities present themselves? That's the preparation that Oprah Winfrey was talking about, right? Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. So during a time of unemployment, the perfect time to start to think about retraining yourself, exposing yourself to new things. Volunteer. I volunteered all over the place to do this kind of moderation on virtual platforms before anyone would pay me for it. I had to figure out how to do it and do it in a way that if I'm volunteering, they can't get too mad at me, right? I'm offering my time for free, and I learned a lot. But it takes a growth mindset. And this is very important. So these days, employers need highly skilled and technical people. You want to get into a growth mindset and search for training opportunities as an investment in you. The best investment you can make is the things that you carry with you, not money, but your education, your experience, your exposure, your attitude. These are really important. There are lots of opportunities for you to grow, develop, and unfold. The place to start really is America's Job Center. There are even free training platforms for job seekers to enhance your computer skills. Now, this is a must. These days, there are very few jobs that don't require some level of computer skill. Even the guy who picks up my trash, great, I love that they pick up my trash, but they have little computers, monitoring where they're going and what they're doing. Everybody needs to learn how to interact with the computer. And you want to seek an employer that values professional development. It's sad to me when job seekers come in and their employer has not kept up with the latest technology, the latest computer programs, and we have job seekers who are really obsolete. Then that growth curve, that learning curve is so much steeper. So you need to keep your skills relevant and current, just like that 83-year-old college graduate. And you need to seek employers that are going to invest in you as well as you make that investment. So to go to school for 12 years or more during our childhood and even adulthood, and then we're done. But when the pace of change gets this fast, the only way to retain a lifelong working capacity is to engage in lifelong learning. That was Thomas Friedman. Thomas Friedman wrote a book many, many books, but he wrote a book in the 90s that was really earth-shaking called The Earth is Flat, and it was all about the impact of technology on the global economy and people around the world. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Papua New Guinea. I lived in a grass hut. There was no electricity, no running water. The people live the same now there, but they all carry cell phones, smartphones that they power with the sun. They have a solar power battery charger. So they're still living again in grass huts with no running water, no electricity, but they have a smartphone. So it's impacting everyone, and you just have to keep learning, learning, learning. So these empowerment rules are if-then. If I don't get this ideal job that I want now, then I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to be like that phlebotomist right? To achieve great things, you got to take it one step at a time. So these kind of empowerment rules, if this happens, then I'm going to do that. If this happens, then I'm going to do that. I mean, I would think you need a plan A. This is the ideal situation. At least 2 if-thens, if not 3. If this happens, then if I fall in love and get married, then I'll take 6 months off and then get back at it, right? If I get pregnant and have a child, or my spouse does, I want to take time to bond with the child, but then I'm going to get back at it, right? You need this because it puts you in charge, and that's where you want to be. You want to be in charge. Right? If I get a job in the same industry that is not very strong during recessions, then I'm going to seek a job in another, I'm going to say no and move on and get one that's in a stronger industry, or take that job but still look for one in the industry that's stronger. So I hope you understand what I'm talking about here. So this is in the handouts, kind of an infographic that I've put together talking about this smarter goal concept. So be sure and get those handouts, and they will have that for you. And I want you not to think of your goals only as professional goals. There are many categories of goals. Yes, professional goals, but what are your health goals? What are your family goals? This is really important. What kind of family life do you want? And are your actions really aligning with your priority of values? When you become very clear with your priority of values, you create a strategy where these things surface. I realize that I tend to really put my best foot forward at work, but I let the stress get to me. And then I would come home and not be the nicest person to live with. And I realized my family is so important. I've got to control that a little better. And if I get stressed out, then I need to do something to de-stress before I come home and dump on my family. Financial goals, volunteer goals. Again, during a time of unemployment, great time to volunteer. What are your personal growth goals? What are your creative expression goals? You know, during this pandemic, I've had the opportunity to get back into some hobbies that I loved earlier that I never had a chance to do when I was really on the road. I was a road warrior, working all the time. So I actually have grown to love this virtual environment. What are some goals for fun? Maybe you want to set a goal, you want to go hiking, or you want to go surfing, or you want to rent a kayak. I don't know, but set some goals around it. And this is really important because we're going to talk about something now in our last 10 minutes called time targets. This is how to use your energy to do what matters most. So we go back to Stephen Covey. Stephen Covey wrote a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He's the one that had that quote earlier that I quoted. And in this book, he talks not only about start with your first things first, but he talks about this concept of time targets, which is a balance between things that are urgent and things that are important. So this is what Stephen Covey said. He says that there are things that are urgent and things that are not urgent. There are things that are important and that are not important. Now, what's interesting is most people say, where should you spend your time? In the important and urgent, right? But what happens in that place? In that place, we're kind of frantic, right? That's actually not where you want to spend most of your time. You want to spend your time, obviously, on the important things, but when it's not urgent. When you can do it in a calm manner, right? This is really important because there are 2 kinds of stress. And this is, I love this concept. So when we talk about stress, we usually talk about distress, right? We're panicked, everything's urgent. But there's another kind of stress, which is really like this energy that comes. And we call this the eustress. Eustress, you is the Greek pronoun for the word good. So this is good stress, right? It's what got you to be on this workshop today, the good stress. We want to live in the good stress. The good stress is when it's not urgent, but it's important, right? No one has a gun pointed at my head to go to graduate school, but I'll tell you, going to graduate school made a huge difference in my life, Having a master's degree, my husband talks about it like a ticket. It's a ticket that has gotten me a lot of wonderful career opportunities. You can tell I'm big on advanced education and certification. I worked very hard to become certified as an HR professional. No one was forcing me to do this. The only person who made it important was me. But doing it, I've gotten so much work and so many opportunities and so much legitimacy to the things that I already know how to do by being certified by SHRM, right? What is that certification body in your industry? And what would happen if you were certified? Or what would happen if you had a long-term goal of getting a certain degree or passing a test or finishing something, right? This is called the U stress. It's not urgent. It's not like paying your taxes on April 14th, or it's not like, you know, having to do a whole bunch of things you have to do, but it's the things that are important that make the difference in your life. A lot of us say we want to have no stress, but actually in this state, nothing happens, right? Sometimes we need to take time to not be stressed, to relax, but you need to be careful you're not living there. Right? So the question to ask yourself is, when do you think you do your best work? And I'm here to tell you, you do it when you're in the eustress mode, not the distress mode, and not the no stress mode. When it's important, it's not urgent, you have clarity of thought because you know what you're doing and you can move forward. So let's go back to this urgent versus important. Now, the not important and not urgent, that's the no stress zone. Now, it's still on the chart. We'll talk about that. It's not that you never do that, but you want to make sure it's not just a distraction for you, an escape, and you're avoiding the things that really need to get done. Because this chart is dynamic. Things don't find themselves on this chart and stay there. So, for example, February 1st, your taxes are important, but they're not urgent yet, right? And they stay there in the not urgent for probably 6 weeks until you get into April. Now it's April 13th, April 14th, and my taxes are urgent and I'm stressed out because they're important, right? So this is important to understand. It's dynamic too. So people say, what is this urgent but not important? This is a form of distress, but this is usually caused by somebody else delegating something to you, somebody else putting pressure on you to get it done. Now, here's what I say. I don't say completely forget this. It might be someone you love. You love your mother. You love your husband. You love your children. And they come to you with all these urgent things that they can't do without you. And you have a decision to make. Are you going to do it? And if you do it, it's not important to you, but it's urgent to somebody else. Do it out of love. Do it because you love them, because you want to, because then you won't resent it. And it will de-stress you. Be clear on why and set some boundaries about it, right? But be aware when something feels urgent, is it really yours or is it somebody else's concern? And then, do I feel like doing it? Do I want to do it? Do I have time? Is it going to make the rest of my life crazy? Or do I just want to say, no, I won't do that, set some boundaries. This is a very important realization. The next is the important and urgent. Now these, again, your taxes the day before they're due. We feel distress, and you're never going to get rid of that kind of distress in your life, but you want to make sure your whole life isn't like that. It's not good for your health. It's not good for your clarity. It is not good for your work performance. So this is when employers say they like people who are organized. Be organized so that you keep as many things out of the distress as possible. This is the eustress. This is when things are not urgent, but they're important. You're organized and plan ahead and getting things done, methodically, you schedule your time well, you live in that eustress zone. So this is where things lead to your fulfillment of your life purposes. These need to be your top priorities. So getting that certification, finding that great job in that new industry, getting out there to that networking event and meeting the people that can help you find that right job. All of these things should fit into the important but not urgent category, and they're really important. Oops, come on. There we go. Again, you're forced to do the urgent and important. Do those things that are not important or urgent only when you want to. And the not important and the not urgent, do only when it's fun and relaxating. So I'm going to take this concept a little farther as we end. It's called time targets for a reason. The center of the circle or the target is important but not urgent. Then we have the important and the urgent. This is when you're in distress. You have to get those taxes done. This is not important but urgent. These can be other people's needs. And this is important but not urgent, right? This is just hanging out, playing video games, watching movies, doing, nothing very important. So this is another way to look at this. The center of the target is where we're aiming. But on the outside, it's called the zone of distraction. It's when it's not important and not urgent. But guess what? We don't want to completely eliminate that. You need to decompress. You need to de-stress. Watch a funny movie. Sit on TikTok and laugh. Go to the beach and just do nothing. We need to do that in order for us to feel centered. And particularly when you're doing a job search, you need to do that then. The zone of delusion, this is again, it's when other people's issues are coming in. The zone of urgency, where you feel like you absolutely have to do it. And then the zone of fulfillment is in the middle, where it's important but not urgent. People who find the most fulfillment in life spend 40 to 70% of their time in the zone of fulfillment. So this is your goal, right? To figure out things that you want to do, a strategy, smarter goals with empowerment rules in order to spend most of your time in your zone of fulfillment. The day you decide to do it is your lucky day. And here is just, we're wrapping it up now, but you want to see your goal, understand the obstacles, create a positive mental picture, clear your mind of self-doubt, embrace the challenge, stay on track, and show the world that you can do it. This is how you meet success. Here are the 5-step process to set goals that you can achieve. You want to be clear on what you need and what you want. Conduct a SWOT analysis to clarify your strategy. Base your strategy on your priority of values. Develop smarter goals and share them with an accountability buddy. You know, they say if you share your goals with someone else, you're more likely to achieve them. Be persistent with a growth mindset and willingness to move to your contingency plans according to your empowerment rules. And finally, take good care of yourself to ensure you have the energy to achieve your goals. I always offer a challenge activity. So this is 2-part. First, get the handouts and complete the priority of values. So this is an opportunity for you after you complete that to reflect on how you demonstrate these values in your past job and how you can share your use of these values in a job interview. Second, I want you to develop 3 smarter goals. Make 1 a career goal and 1 a personal goal. And the third can be your choice, but just different kinds of goals. Share your goals with an accountability buddy, a trusted friend, and explain the smarter concept and ask them to help make your goals smarter. And you could also get them to develop a smarter goal and help them. This will help you understand the concept and to really enhance your relationship with your accountability buddy. So that's your challenge activity. And that's our course in goal setting. My name again is Kathy Markov. It's been my pleasure. I'm gonna type my name into the chat, my email address. I love to hear from people who've been in my classes. Reach out to America's Job Center for the handouts, and you can unmute yourself and ask any questions. I'm here for you. Any questions, comments, anything? See, we have 5 participants. Well, if we don't have any questions, Camilla, Magali, I'm not sure I said that right, forgive me. Well, you can email me. Thank you, Camilla. It was my pleasure. Reach out anytime. Well, with that, unless there are any questions, I'm going to end the meeting. Thank you all so much. Good luck.